Hello, Dayton, and welcome once again to the Retirement Blueprint with Tim Lofton. I'm your host, Spike Spengel. Tim, how are you doing this week?
Doing well, Spike.
Fantastic. We're going to talk about a lot of current events because we're getting a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails about what to do right now. I'm worried about people reacting to the news, especially at Axum Planning and Wealth. We want to make sure that we're taking a pause before we react to either fear or greed. Really important to be talking about right now. An article you shared with me from Fortune magazine was talking about how we might need to throw away one of the most common ways that people invest in retirement, the 60-40. The 60-40 had one terrible year last year. Do we need to look at the way we invest into retirement a little bit differently right now because of what's going on?
Well, it depends, Spike, whether we're talking about getting to retirement or if we're actually in retirement. One of the things that we talk about all the time with clients is that, the traditional ways of doing things aren't necessarily wrong. It's a matter of they are not the traditional way in retirement to get you where you need to be. The 60-40 is a perfect example of that, and this year, unfortunately, highlighted that in that whether you were in the 60 part of the market,
which we would usually say is the stocks, right?
Normally the stocks, and obviously people are well aware of how that went down. But then the 40%, the bond part, the part that's supposed to be safe, the airbag didn't go off. In fact, it went down right along with the market. And while that doesn't happen all the time, it's an example of where it can steer you wrong if that's your overall strategy. A better strategy, or at least a different strategy, the way that we look at it here at Axum, is defining what the money is supposed to do. What's it supposed to do for you? If it's to produce income, then volatility inside of something that has to guarantee you a certain amount of income kind of doesn't make sense. If it doesn't have to produce income, then it becomes a longer term outlook. Volatility isn't a problem. And remember, Spike, people don't mind volatility when it's up volatility, right? It's the down volatility that gets their attention.
Great. I'm so glad that you brought this up, though, because, yes, upside, fantastic. We're looking for that, the downside volatility. But how many times when somebody comes into your office for the very first time, do they not realize how much volatility they are exposing themselves to in their own investments? Don't a lot of people come to you with their 401ks and think that they're relatively safe because it's a work account?
Oh, without a doubt. I would say 9 out of 10 people, when they come to the office and we actually sit down, and our wealth management team uses that Riskalyze program that we use, that won the Nobel Prize for its algorithm. We look at it and we see typically a comparison between a good market like a 2013 and a bad market like a 2008. And they are amazed that they have more downside than potential upside. And I would say about 9 out of 10 people are in that situation. And most of the time they can't do anything about it because they're very restricted inside of those retirement accounts like a 401k, where they can only utilize what's available to them. And so if all that's available to you are, target funds or, a certain selection of mutual funds, they don't necessarily have a way to maneuver. But when you retire, you have full access to a lot of different strategies because they're allowed to, of course, roll that money over.
But I'm still a little dumbfounded. So maybe Professor Lofton here can help me figure this out. You said both of the markets were correlated together. Stocks went down last year, but so did bonds. I don't understand. Interest rates went up.
Right.
And I guess there's some sort of inverse relationship. Interest rates go up, bond values go down, but I don't get it because bonds are based on their interest rate that they're going to pay out. Why were our safety bags last year such a bad area to be in?
Well, you nailed it, Spike. They have an inverse relationship with interest rates go up, values go down. So, for the new person that says, hey, I've got some money on the sidelines and I'm looking to get a fixed rate, they're benefiting from a rising interest rate environment where they're able to get a higher rate. For people who already have a rate in place, when interest rates go up, now the value of that bond doesn't have the same value that it did because I can get a higher rate someplace else. So if I'm buying that bond from someone else, I'm not going to pay the same price as I would if I could get a higher rate. And so it unfortunately, it's one of those things where we happen to go through a period of time, and this has happened before many times in history, where both the stock market and the bond market both went down in the same year.
Wow, it's been almost 4 decades since something like that happened. So the trade market value of the bonds went down. It's not like the bonds themselves actually lost money, right? So if you were holding a 2% bond, it was still paying you out 2%.
Correct.
It's just that there's 3 or 4% out there. So if I wanted to trade that bond, I'd have to sell that at a discount.
You would have to. You have to give somebody the discount to get them to where current rates are. And so as long as they held that bond till maturity, they're going to get their money back. As long as they hold that bond, they're going to continue to get the interest payment that they originally purchased. But the value of it in the event that they needed to sell it early no longer has its value. And so that's reflected on those statements when they're looking at that. The other piece of this is most people don't own individual bonds. They own mutual funds. And so the values in those mutual funds are also declining because of that same phenomenon, right? Interest rates went up. Now the value of that mutual fund is not the same.
Right. Your typical client that you are helping out, and then your typical caller from your TV show or maybe from one of your live events. Was this affecting your clients, or had you already taken into account this kind of anomaly that could be happening, or did you get more scared phone calls from the viewers out there? Like, well, what do I do now? If I thought bonds were safe, if bonds were my airbag, where am I supposed to go?
Well, for new people coming into the office for the first time, this is a situation where they didn't know what to do. They weren't expecting this. For our existing clients, we have diversified out of that area when we originally did their plan, because we've been looking at a rise in interest rate environment for many years. We just haven't been right until now.
Right. Well, Tim, I know for the first 10 callers out there, there's a lot of uncertainty. We want to make sure that you're taking the right kind of risk, that you are willing to do the complimentary retirement blueprint. Folks, all you've got to do is call the phone number you see right here, 855-684-3485. Call into the office so we can get you started on your own complimentary retirement blueprint. We're going to take a look at your investments. What are the fees like in there? Is the risk appropriate to what you're doing? We'll take a look at your taxes. We'll take a look at your estate planning, meaning are you leaving money to anyone, including just your spouse? We want to make sure that you've got your I's dotted and your T's crossed. And we'll make sure that you have health care coverages further down the road, including looking at things like long-term care, helping out with those Medicare choices. All of those are part of the retirement blueprint and are complementary to the first 10 callers who give us a ring right here or use the QR code down at the bottom of the screen. But we are well aware of the uncertainty right now. Watch this following message on how Tim likes to help you with the uncertainty that's out there right now.
Unexpected events, like a global pandemic, can turn our world upside down overnight. They can cause volatile shifts that may cause you to question the confidence in your current retirement plan. As a retiree or a pre-retiree, knowing you have a plan that can withstand the worst economic conditions is vital. Contact us today for a complimentary review. Get a second opinion and learn more about our trademark process, the Retirement Blueprint. Let us plan your tomorrow today.
Welcome back to the Retirement Blueprint with Tim Lofton. I'm your host, Spike Spengel. You know, the uncertainty of last year continues right now. I think one of the words that we talked about a lot during last year's programs is the volatility, uncertainty, what's going to go on. And I still think we're seeing that in the markets. 1,000-point swings, 1,200-point swings. We react to everything from wars around the world to just market announcements of what's going on, earnings and so forth. You know what I found interesting, though, is you shared an article with me from Think Advisor magazine that even experts seek investment advice during volatile times. Axum Wealth, there's a team of you there, right? It's not just Tim Lofton throwing darts at a board picking investments, correct?
No, not only that, I don't throw any darts. I have nothing to do with the wealth management side, and I'm very happy to not be involved in that. I like being able to have the guys in the office be like, did you see what the market did yesterday? I'm like, I have no idea. You know, that's my expertise really relies around the planning side, but our wealth management team is passionate, Spike, about everything along the lines of research, and they have many different sources that they seek information, news, trends from to be able to help our clients navigate the waters of these markets.
Right. Well, and from a financial planner at Axum Planning and Wealth, they might say to you, well, what are your returns like? You know, we know what the markets did last year. And you know, we want to know when you're looking at a game, right? You want to know which team won, who had the most points, who played well, who didn't, right? And people try to evaluate their financial advisors the same way. When people ask you about performance, especially with the backdrop of a year like last year, how do you respond to that? What do you talk about when it comes to performance?
Well, you know, we have to be careful, obviously, when we start, you know, touting how well we've done, because the new people coming in are starting from zero, right? I mean, they're brand new with us, and you know, it's like the advertisements on the bottom of the screen that, you know, past returns are not indicative of future results. You know, we have to be very careful with that. But I do think it gives people an idea where they can give a direct comparison to, I know what I did. We can show them what we did, and we tend to do that before we know what they did. And I think that's an important takeaway when you're interviewing potential advisors. Don't necessarily give them that information up front. Ask them what they did. That way you can have a comparison, and you don't end up with somebody trying to kind of, you know, move the needle a little bit. But, you know, we're very open, very transparent about, you know, the goods and the bads, and the good decisions we made and the bad decisions we made. But I think overall people would be pleasantly surprised when they compare how they did with how we did last year through the pandemic in years past. We have a fairly lengthy track record that we're happy to share with people.
If someone out there watching the program right now would like to kind of take a look at their own performance, we call it either a second opinion, an analysis, a portfolio x-ray. Is there a cost to do that for somebody to come in and just say, I want to see how I'm doing? You know, even if I have a financial advisor, I'd like to know if this homework is okay.
Yeah, of course not. You know, we want to be a tool. We want to be leveraged. We want to be able to give people a second opinion. We have no problems with telling somebody that where they are is exactly where they should be, and we have absolutely done that in the past. We're not here to convince people to do business with us or to work with us or to make a change unless it makes sense. And it's got to make sense to them, not just to us. It's important for us to be able to sit down with somebody to build a plan and then give them the opportunity to be able to evaluate, is this different? Is this something, you know, that we've not necessarily, you know, experienced in our current relationship with our advisory team? We have a team of people in place that is different than most firms. You know, we have an estate planning attorney, we have a tax planning accountant, we have a wealth management team, a group of people working together for the benefits of our clients. And I think it makes a big difference where most of the time the conversations revolve, start, and stop around the world of just wealth management, and typically only accumulation, not distribution, which is what people in retirement are actually looking for.
Well, good. Then let me press you a little bit on that, because when we're coming from the distribution, let's be honest, when you've got a family that's come in, we've got a spouse or even somebody who's just coming in on their own, they probably have several different kinds of accounts, right? We've got our 401k from work, maybe an IRA on the outside. We've got our savings investment accounts, maybe at a couple of different firms, and we play around with that. Got our Social Security, maybe we haven't even turned it on yet. Which sequence of which funds and accounts do we want to take from first? That's one of my first questions is, do I take from the largest account because I know that one's going to last the longest and it can continue to compound? Well, how do you help people put together the pieces of where we're going to start drawing from?
Spike, that's a great question, and this is something that comes up all the time where, you know, not only on the where do I take income, but what accounts do I have what investments in? And it's not uncommon for our wealth management team to take a look at what somebody's currently doing and discover that they own the wrong types of investments in the wrong accounts. Where, you know, for example, you know, maybe they have a growth aspect to their portfolio that's in a non-taxable account with the idea that, oh, well, you know, if this goes up, I'm not going to have to pay taxes on it. but if it goes down, they also don't have any tax benefit of those losses. The other piece is, when we're looking at income, we have to look at it through a tax microscope. We have to understand not just where are we going to get the income from, but how much of that income are we going to keep after taxes?
Right, right. Well, you brought up taxes, so I wanted to cover that. We might need to blend over the break a little bit here. I wanted to ask a little bit about the Roth conversion. I've been getting some calls, you've been getting some emails about when is not only the good time to do it, because we realize that tax brackets are still pretty low right now, but is there a time when it's too late? Should we be doing Roth conversions even if we're 62, 64, 65? People say, well, I already have a regular 401k. I'm too old to be doing a conversion. Is it worth it, even if we're older right now, to be looking at a Roth conversion?
Well, there's a lot of situations where it does make sense, Spike, and I've sat through many conversations with our tax planning CPA where he is able to kind of demonstrate the value of being retired, being in a lower tax bracket, starting to move some of that money out. Our estate planning attorney also is a fan of Roth IRA conversion, or sometimes just simply taking money out of the bigger retirement plan, taking advantage of the lower tax rates, so that maybe that money needs to be moved into like an irrevocable trust. Well, you can't move an IRA 401k into an irrevocable trust. So there's strategy involved in these. It's not a simple, yes, you should do a Roth conversion, or no, you shouldn't do a Roth conversion. It really goes back to the plan, and the plan will show those type of opportunities.
Okay, why can't you put a 401k or an IRA into a trust? Or
That-
irrevocable?
Into an irrevocable trust, and that is an excellent question. I would like to know from
from
from the IRS why.
Again,
Well,
we say it a lot.
Right.
We don't know what we don't know.
Well,
right?
the short answer is this: an IRA is an individual retirement account.
And you're leaving that money into a trust, which is
to move it into a
entity.
trust. You are the grantor. You're putting money into the trust. In an irrevocable trust, I can no longer have any ownership structure for it to qualify.
Okay.
And so there's no way that I can move an individual retirement account into an irrevocable trust and not retain ownership
Because
of
I'm
it.
still an individual who owns the.
Exactly.
Okay, that totally makes sense. And the same thing with a 401k. So the tax planning can be really, really complicated with it. And of course, we want to get even more tax efficient. There's a lot of folks who think they're going to pay less in taxes in retirement because they're no longer receiving an income. Or let me be more specific, a salary from an outside source. But they're still-
paycheck.
A paycheck from
paycheck.
someone else. But they're still going to be taking income. So do you
Correct.
think, and you see, that people necessarily make less or are going to pay less in taxes in retirement?
Well, our goal, most of the time when we're doing planning is that they're going to have the same amount of income in retirement as they are when they're working. And, obviously there's some caveats there. If they've paid off a mortgage or, something along those lines, obviously they're not going to have that expense. But we don't see where there's a big drop off in spending in retirement versus when they were working, because think about it, you have an unlimited amount of time to do whatever the heck you want to do. So travel, going to see the grandkids, spending money on vacations, take the place of maybe some of the things that you were spending while you were working. And so our income goal for most clients is that the income stays the same. So they may not necessarily be in a lower tax bracket just because they're retired.
I think this gives us a good opportunity that we can explain to the folks exactly what a tax analysis is about. Folks, we want to get you started on your own complimentary retirement blueprint by calling. You call the phone number right here, 855-684-3485. But follow this message here. We're going to talk a little bit about the tax planning solution that Axon Planning and Wealth can provide for you, also by calling the phone number right here. More of the Retirement Blueprint with Tim Lofton right after this.
Hi, I'm Tim Lofton, and for 27 years, we've been helping people just like you navigate to and through retirement with our trademark process, the Retirement Blueprint. Many of our clients are extremely concerned today with the increasing federal debt and a potential for a significant increase in taxes. If you share these or other retirement concerns, give us a call today for a no-obligation complimentary consultation. Let us plan your tomorrow today.
Welcome back to the Retirement Blueprint with Tim Lofton. I'm your host, Spike Spengel. Tim, of course, is with Axum Planning and Wealth, a financial advisor, not just a great broadcaster. You actually help people with financial planning solutions in the office every single day. This is sometimes a kind of a side topic of what we talk about. I want to talk a little bit about housing, if you will. We saw the interest rates go up. It was such an interesting market. And usually the housing market is kind of like watching grass grow. It's not usually anywhere near as exciting or interesting to watch as it was last year. But the housing market almost worked like the stock market. I mean, if you go back to the year before, oh my God, people were just putting cash offers on top of houses, and then all of a sudden interest rates start going up, the housing market starts slowing down. But for the folks right here in Dayton, is this taxation on their homes because of the increased value? Is this hurting retirees, or is the increased home value, you think, helping retirees here in Ohio?
It's interesting because, you don't normally think of Ohio and the area that we live in as a hotbed for real estate. I mean, it's usually on the coast, the East Coast, the West Coast, and you see these crazy growth rates, maybe down in Florida, where, house prices are just going up like crazy, and somebody bought their house for this price and they sold it for that price. That's not the norm here in Dayton, Ohio. And, I've been blown away by the stories of clients, selling houses, and they put it for sale on a Friday and they got 5 offers on a Saturday and they got $40,000 above asking price. That's not the kind of markets we have here in our communities, and yet we have seen it. And I guess, when you look at what we have gone through here in the last couple of years with real estate through the pandemic, people have taken advantage, I think, in a positive way where, we've had a lot of clients that have actually sold their house, have decided to rent for a period of time, knowing that at some point in time, this thing's got to come back the other way. We just don't see these level of growth rates in our area. We don't have an ocean. There's no.
I was going to say Dayton's. To you, it sounds like it's become the Silicon Valley of Ohio.
It has. I mean, it's the craziest thing, and we've had so many conversations with clients and still continue to do where they're like, well, Tim, we want to sell our house, but we've got to do this, we got to do that, or we need to spend $50,000 to get it ready, and we're like, no, just listen. You got nothing to lose. Put a sign out front. If it doesn't sell, it doesn't sell. And we get a call literally the next weekend, and they're like, oh my gosh, our house sold overnight and it needed all this work. People don't care. There was such
it's still supply-demand world.
Supply-demand. And, while it has slowed down a little bit, we're still seeing, a pretty healthy selling market. If you're trying to sell your home, now is not a bad time, especially, we just had a client that wanted to relocate to a different state. And she's doing it, I think, a very smart way. She's selling her house here. She's going to rent there, wait for things to correct, and then, make a purchase.
Brilliant. And I think that's a wonderful advice and a wonderful way to go about it. Because, it's where is this market going to go? But people do the same thing in the stock market. They just don't realize that this housing market has been reacting in that same sort of way. A lot of people were trying to jump in because they said, well, if I don't buy it now, it's just going to be that much more expensive a couple months from now. Right. And they were doing the same thing. They're buying with either the fear or the greed. So I better buy right now or I better sell. As far as where the home and all of the equity that we have in a home, how does that fit into the overall financial plan? I mean, a home is something that you need to live in, but do you talk to folks maybe who haven't saved enough about downsizing, about using this asset as being something to help them with retirement?
We have. It's obviously not our goal. I would say for the most part, when people are coming in, the house is typically paid for. It's paid off. Mm-hmm. There's always the argument of, interest. I got a low interest rate. Why should I pay it off? But it just feels good. It's not typically an asset that we want to have to use. If we have to do a downsize scenario to create additional income, it's usually a conversation that's not the kind of conversation we like to have. But it is a solution. And sometimes people have, that higher dollar home that they really don't need. The kids have now moved out, they're empty nesters, and they have this opportunity to maybe capitalize and use some of those dollars to create additional income in retirement.
Right. So I'd like to talk just a little bit about the retirement blueprint itself. We haven't spent time on it. I think some of the different facets of it, but maybe you could explain from Axum Planning and Wealth exactly what it means to you. What do you want to be able to do for the viewers who call in to the television program here today?
Well, what we'd like to be able to do is to take your dreams and all the things that you have in your head and probably that 3-ring notebook that has all your statements in it and actually put it into a written plan. A written plan that is going to actually give you a path forward to retirement, knowing that, I'm not going to run out of money because I have a plan. I'm not going to see everything that I've worked so hard for all my life go to a nursing home. Putting yourself in a position where the ones you care about, the ones you love, when you leave your hard work behind, it's going to go to who you want, when you want, the way you want, with the least amount of fees possible. It's called an estate plan. The retirement blueprint takes this and many other things into consideration for you. It's custom for you and your family. It's an opportunity for you to make your retirement the best retirement it can be.
Let me ask you this then. With that retirement blueprint, I am imagining you put in all of your data, you put in all your facts and figures, we come up with kind of a strategy, saving strategy. I think you probably test it against things that might go wrong, like inflation or market drops. So is this a product or a process, the retirement blueprint?
It's 100% a process, Spike. There is no one size fits all when it comes to retirement. You can't Google your way to a successful retirement through online planning tools.
I think we found a new logo. You can't Google your way to retirement, right? We're gonna have that for the TV show. That's right. So it's a constant process.
It is. Getting your retirement blueprint is not an event. It's the start of a process where we get to sit down and do life with you. It gets us to the starting point, and then the adjustments have to be made as life changes, which it absolutely will.
Right. And who's more likely to give you a ring? Somebody who's starting out on their retirement, somebody who's in their 40s or 50s, who should pick up that phone call right now?
Really, the retirement blueprint is designed and built around people that are starting to approach retirement or already in retirement. If you're already in retirement, this is your chance to make sure that you're on track and that you stay on track.
Thank you so much, Tim. It's been a great program today. Thank you for watching. Call right now so you can get started on your own complimentary retirement blueprint. The first 10 callers, 855-684-3485. For Tim Lofton, I'm Spike Spengel. Thank you so much for watching the program. We're going to be back again next week with more retirement planning strategies for you, Dayton. Thank you for watching.